This is Canada Reads American Style, featuring two friends who love Canada Reads and Canadian literature. Welcome our host Rebecca from Michigan and Tara from Ontario.
Hi everyone, it's Rebecca, Tara, and our good friend Jolene, Bookworm Adventure Girl, and we are here to discuss Day 1, 2023 Canada Reads. Today was an exciting day, I think, in some ways, and maybe in some other ways it wasn't. We'll have to see. But we're going to start with Jolene and get first impressions. Welcome.
Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you for having me. Today's debates, I was very excited for it and was really looking forward to seeing what would happen today. And I think that the first day is always the most difficult, I think. And I think everyone was nervous and tried to get their nerves out. And I find as the debates go on, that nervousness gets a little bit better. So I did find that people were maybe more nervous than hopefully they will be. But that's normal. I also find that there's so much that happens on the first day, and because there's so many books, they try to put so much into what they're going to say. So sometimes they try to say everything all at once. So some of them were speaking very quickly. And what I loved is that Michael Grey Eyes spoke so not quietly, but just slowly and took his time, and he was almost the opposite of everyone else. And I thought, oh my goodness, you're gonna run out of time, you only have 30 seconds, hurry up, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But it went well. I think there was some better arguments out there, and there were some that I thought that's not gonna fly. And one of the things that I found a little bit disappointing, now we all love Ali Hassan, he's fantastic. But when they did their first round and they talked about, here's my 1 minute kind of thing, then I felt like the second round was kind of the same thing, because he basically asked, how is your book relevant? I think what I would have liked, and I don't know what you guys think about this, but I think I would have preferred him to say, what's another book that you find relevant or not relevant, or, have them start talking about the other books, not just their own. Because I felt like that first round, they were already talking about their book, and then they kind of just redid that. And I would have liked to have seen more debate that way, where they start talking about the other book as well. So, but yeah, I thought it was a great start, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens tomorrow.
Can I just say too, I totally agree with you. I didn't care for the fact that they almost did another round where they basically promoted their own book. I really wanted, I would have loved to have had them say something like, hey, even what book did you like, say, second to your book, or which book did you really not care for, or something other than, because I felt like we just didn't have enough different kind of discourse. And when you get a chance, I want you to go back, and you said something about, oh, now I can't remember how you said it, but something that didn't ring true, or something that you said that I don't know if you know remember what you just said, Jolene, but there was something you said that I was like, ooh, what did you mean by that? So I don't know if you'll remember. Damn, I'll have to later go back and then say, okay, now we need you to respond, like maybe on your podcast, on your YouTube channel or something. Sure. Anyway, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what that was that Jolene was saying too.
Yeah.
I can't remember. But I agree with both of you. I found it I liked the first question. And then the second question, I found it or second round almost, kind of muddled. Like that, I felt like Ali was trying to steer them one way, and they kept going around to bringing it back to their own book, instead of kind of getting a discourse on other books going.
Yeah, I'm almost wondering if he just didn't phrase the question the way he had intended. I'd love to ask him that. Like, was he trying to get them to talk about other books, but that was not clear in how he asked that question? And so they all just ended up talking about their own books again, because he did interject at one point to say, I'm sure you're going to pick your own book, but maybe you can talk about another book. And he tried. So I thought, I think it was just a missed opportunity, which is too bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I agree about Michael Gray Eyes. You know, it's really funny because they started out with Matea, who I think is her the way she communicates looked she looked kind of stern the whole
Mhm.
time. Yeah, and then she also said something which I'll talk about a little bit later, but she was really talking fast. She's really rapid fire, that type of person. I thought that Keegan, I thought she really did a super job. Like I felt like she got the most relevant and important words in her time. Like she used her time really, really well. But boy, let me tell you, when Michael spoke, I was like, and I'm a fast talker, so I was like, oh good Lord, he is never going to be able to get everything he wants to say out. But again, talk about somebody who used his time really wisely and said a lot in fewer words than everyone else.
Yeah, I agree about Keegan. I thought she used her time very wisely, and she brought out arguments, different arguments every time, where I thought some of the others um, kind of kept saying the same thing over and over and over again. And I thought, this is the time to start saying what you really want to say and getting your points out there. And with Michael Grey Eyes, it was just he'd start talking and I'd almost lean in, like, what are you going to say? It was
Mm-hmm.
more riveting, because of his approach and how he speaks.
Yeah, I also found that for Michael Gray Eyes, the way he spoke, he was like a silent ninja. It was really,
Mm-hmm.
I was fascinated because, but at the end of it, I think I keep thinking back on it, and I think he even said more than I realized he said. And I found he made a connection with us. Well, I shouldn't speak for everyone, with myself as a reader, because he spoke about his loving horror books and graphic novels, comic books, and sci-fi, like from a young reader. And that's something that's carried him through his whole life. And I thought that was really smart because I'm like, now he's connecting with all of us as just like on this emotional level. So I really liked that he did that. Um, so I was very impressed with him. The one I was disappointed with was Tasmin with her I had expected Mexican Gothic to be voted off first, but I had hoped that she would defend it a little stronger than she did. And I felt she came to the table, to the competition today with like kind of a defeated attitude. Like, I know no one likes to read horror, but give it a chance. I didn't like that. I thought she could have done more to really highlight what the genre of horror does and what it can do and how it can link people because we all feel fear at some point in our lives, right?
Yeah, I agree, Tara. I found that she did this thing where she um, almost started with the defense without anyone saying
Mm-hmm.
anything against her book. And I always find that to be kind of a weaker way of debating. you know
Yeah,
I know you're going to say that this isn't it placed in Canada, so I'm going to say it first,
yeah,
so that instead of starting off with, here are the strong things about my book. Now again, I also thought that it was an easy target and I thought it would be first to go, but at least try. Like,
yeah,
I think had she had a strong argument, maybe she could have swayed me and swayed, the other people who are going to be voting, because it doesn't really matter what I think in the end. But for
hmm,
the people who are voting, to put it out there and say, these are the strong things that, are good about my book. And I think maybe she tried to, but it didn't, it fell flat for me.
yeah.
Yeah, and for me, I agree. I was surprised that I didn't feel that she came really loaded for bear. But interestingly, I watched a number of her videos on TikTok, and I thought I actually believe that she might be the weakest of the debaters because her skill set is like those 30-minute or I'm 30-minute, those 3-minute or less kind of videos, right? And I listened to a number of hers and I never felt like she was really getting into a real, which you can't in 3 minutes, a real deep analysis of a book. And so she's the one I thought she may be the weakest of the group, even though she has a lot of followers, she's on Book Talk, she's very popular, etc. But I kind of thought she might have the weaker skill set, with regard to debates.
Hmm.
I did think it was interesting that they talked about genre, and I think partly because of that being a horror book, and also with Ducks being a graphic novel. And I don't remember in the past them talking about genre in quite the same way, and really bringing that into the debates and saying, okay, unless sometimes maybe nonfiction and if it's a memoir. But I thought it was interesting that they thought that a gothic novel would be at a disadvantage. I don't think that's why it was at a disadvantage. I think it was at a disadvantage for a lot of other reasons. Like she pointed some of those out. So I thought that was interesting. And then, of course, the graphic novel. I think there's only been one other graphic novel that's made it into the short list. But it'll be interesting to see if that keeps coming up now that Mexican Gothic is no longer there.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to say something about that because I made a note to myself because okay, I'm going to say this to our dear Canadian readers who almost always say this. Whenever a book is not directly set in Canada, people will say, well, it has nothing to do with Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought to myself, I think if I were a defender, one of the things I would say is it is a Canadian author who has something to say about maybe like in Mexico in the 1950s. I get that. So why can't that tell us something as Canadians, right? So I feel like if if defenders are going to continue to pick books that are not set in Canada, they've got to have a really strong reason for having it in the competition. And I think they just need to keep saying, we're celebrating Canadian writers who have a voice and have something important to say.
I agree. I think that it's easier if it is set in Canada because some of that work is kind of done for you. But what I wish that she had done today is she talked about colonialism, she talked about white supremacy, but she never gave an example. And I have to say that when I read that book, because it was part of Canada Reads, and I was trying to look for that, I wasn't reading it with that in mind. I wasn't thinking about that. So had she said, here are these major issues and here's an example and it's like this and like this, but she didn't do that. She just said it has these things.
Yeah.
And so it kind of lost that, and I thought, no, I didn't get that necessarily from the book.
Yeah, and even like the argument that it's not set in Canada,
Mm-hmm.
it really shouldn't be an argument because we should read stories from the whole world. It shouldn't just be Canada anyways, right? So I would like them to put that out there and just like take that right off the table as an argument to get rid of a book.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's time to do. I mean, I've only been at this for 5 or 6 years, and I sort of feel like it's time to put that to rest. And that's why I say the next time somebody brings a book on that isn't necessarily set in Canada, I think they have to be able to defend that really, really well. And I don't think she really did that. And I agree with you, Jolene. It's and I know day one is hard, but if
Mm-hmm.
you're going to make a point, you've got to give some examples to give people a reason to not vote your book off. But I do want to bring up the other person that we haven't really talked about, which is Gurdeep. And with him, I got a little hung up, I think, on his positivity message because after a while, I'm sure he said more than that, but I couldn't get past how that big smile, and he is like a wonderful human being. I mean, he's just amazing. I knew him before, I'd seen him on TikTok before he was on the show, and I didn't even know who I mean, I knew he was the only one I knew when he was going to be on, but he's so positive and he's got such a lighted up face and everything. But I felt like all I got out of what he was saying was positivity. And so I feel like I completely lost his message. So can you guys talk a little bit about him and tell me what I missed? Because I totally missed.
He said one thing that I really, really liked. I think it was towards the end or maybe 3/4 of the way through. His statement, I'm just paraphrasing, was that unless you're Indigenous, if you live in Canada, you are an immigrant. So we should all be willing and want to read immigrant stories. Like they should interest all of us. And I thought that was I loved that little comment. I thought it was a great comment. It was short, it was concise, but I kind of thought it hit home for his book, for
Mhm.
selling his book.
Yeah, that was my biggest takeaway from him because, like you, Rebecca, I was like, quit saying the same thing over and over. Quit,
Hmm.
talk. I mean, not that I'm dismissing hope and positivity. I think it's wonderful. But
Hmm.
again, back that up. Don't just keep saying the same
Hmm.
words over and over. Give a different example, give a different way, say it in a different way. And he wasn't really doing that. But when he said that, I was like, yes, that is a reason that, every Canadian should read this book. And I thought it was a very strong argument.
Yeah.
And and I want to give a what do I want to call it? Sort of a defense of Matea on something that may not need a defense, and I may be 100% wrong in what I'm about to say, but I'm going to put it out there anyway. Which is, I heard J.L. Richardson, her wrap up after the day one, and she said, Matea had made that comment about, well, you know, Hotline didn't speak to me as much. I'm really paraphrasing, but something like, my family's been here for a really long time. And I think that's what prompted him to say
Hmm.
what Tara just said. But here's the thing I was thinking, because I was shocked too that Matea said that, because it just seemed really kind of insensitive. And I thought, I don't think she's that person, or I'm sorry, they are that person. And I thought, I'm the kind of person, my mouth works a lot faster than my mind. So I say a lot of things sometimes that when I go back and listen to it, I might start a whole sentence, completely stop, go a completely different direction, and never come back to my original thought, as Tara knows and everybody else who listens. But I can really get ahead of myself. And I kind of feel like it, I felt like they sort of went down this road really quickly and just sort of made this kind of like dismissive comment about how their family's been here a long time. And I don't know that that's what she meant, because I feel like that's what I would have said and been like, oh God, I should not have said that. That's not what I meant, but it came out that way. Does that make any sense, what I'm saying?
Yeah, it does. I think probably if she were to reflect back on it, she would probably defend herself and say that's not what I meant.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not sure, where that came from. Um, Other than she's just trying to put the other books down so that her book is, and use it as a tactic that way. But I think it kind of backfired on her. So, but yeah, I mean, in a way, it helped. It helped him make a better argument for his book. So
Yeah.
it prompted that, which I think was a good thing. But yeah, it was an insensitive thing to say the way it sounded. But I'm sure that's not what she meant. Yeah.
Yeah. I hope it wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's see. Have we kind of covered everybody? Do we want to say any more about Keegan? Because uh, I would say, Tara, specifically, how did you think Keegan handled it then? Because I think Jolene and I are kind of on the same page about it.
Oh yeah, no, I am too. I agree with both of you. I thought she did a great job, actually. Like, you can tell that she loves Greenwood. I think she defended it well for the first day. There was nothing new brought to the table, but it's the first day. So,
All right. Well, then let me ask you this, both of you,
mhm.
this. So everybody voted for Mexican Gothic to go first, which I think we all were in agreement about that's what kind of how it would play out. So with Tasneem voting for Greenwood, do you think that was strategic? Because I immediately thought strategic, but do you think it's strategic, or do you think there's more to her having voted for Greenwood versus the other titles?
Yeah, I definitely thought it was strategic. I think Greenwood is one of the strongest books, and so I think she took that opportunity to put a strike against it. I could be wrong, but that's what I thought.
And do you think she'll follow up? I mean, I know we'll talk about this in a minute specifically, but do you feel like she might follow up and just keep going after Greenwood in a sense? Do you think, just offhand?
Hmm. Yeah, maybe.
It'd be interesting to see who she votes for tomorrow, because I mean, they all voted against her book. So she, like any way she votes is going to be a retaliation, which is kind of interesting, really.
Yeah, payback.
Yeah.
So let's see. Is there anything else any other comments? I'm kind of looking at my notes. Oh, I will say one of the other notes I made was that after watching the first day, and everybody did seem, I agree, like really nervous, because Jolene kind of laid the groundwork for us on that. I think they did look really uncomfortable, and our friend Sarah, who is going to be with us tomorrow, she even said something like they were making her uncomfortable like the first day. And I said,
Mm.
gosh, I felt kind of the same way, because it just felt like very weird. It was just a weird dynamic to me. It felt different than other years. But by the end of the episode, I felt Matea and Keegan are in it to win. Like they look like they're totally, going to go for blood, further in the week. What do you
Mhm.
all think?
Yeah, I agree. I think that they are the most prepared. They seem to have their arguments prepared. They seem the most ready to defend, but also to highlight their books.
Mhm.
I don't feel that quite yet from Gurdeep or from Michael, but they have surprised me. So, because it's not like they're doing a bad job or anything like that. But they haven't highlighted their books to the same extent that I think the other two have. So
Mhm.
I agree. I think they're the two stronger ones, which also maybe may make them a target. So sometimes you have to be careful with that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to when they actually start attacking. That sounds like such an aggressive word, but because today was just basically them defending their own books, right? Even for
Yeah.
Mexican Gothic, they didn't have to do any shortcomings or bring out any shortcomings, because Tasmin unfortunately did it for them by pointing out that it's horror that a lot of people don't like to read and that it's not set in Canada. They didn't even have to argue against Mexican Gothic. So I'm looking forward to them when they actually have to start picking out the books that they want to get rid of and saying why. I think that'll be really interesting.
Yeah, and it's funny because Michael, what I thought he did, which surprised me, I mean, I sort of felt like my mouth kind of dropped open, was that he really defended ducks right off the bat. Like, I
Mm.
think it was almost like one of the first things he said. And then he came back and really, and actually, this might have been in the after show, but he really talked a lot about what he really loved about Mexican Gothic. And so I never did see that episode with, Justin Trudeau, flipping votes at the end. But I felt like, oh my gosh, Michael, you feel like I feel like you've sort of forgot you're defending Station 11, and now you're really saying wonderful things about these other books. So I don't know. Did anybody get that sense at all about him?
Yeah, because he also said he loved Mexican Gothic as well, right?
Yeah.
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 I think
So
he's doing the polite Canadian thing, and he just
Yeah.
likes them all. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, so first day, I think we all predicted Mexican Gothic would go out. And
Yeah.
now, what are your predictions for tomorrow? Maybe what would you like to? Are there any questions you would like to see Allie asking? And then, what are your predictions for which book might go tomorrow?
You want me to go first? Sorry.
Yeah. Go ahead,
Sure,
Jolene.
sorry. Yeah. So my prediction, because I've already done my predictions. My prediction for tomorrow is
Hmm.
ducks.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think that is, well, I mean, obviously it's a possibility, but I do think that could happen, because it already came up today that they're talking about, and I didn't see this, but an interview or a conversation that Matea
Hmm.
had with
Yeah.
either the publisher or the author, and they kind of talked about some things that were against the book, and so I thought
Hmm.
that was interesting and not maybe the best for promoting the book. So I think
Yeah.
that may be brought up again. um yeah, I do think that it has a few things going against it for tomorrow. If Hotline and, well, I don't know, I actually think Greenwood too. I mean, Greenwood is my number one choice, as you both know, but I do think that because it's a target, because she is a stronger advocate for it. She has the arguments. They may try and take it out. I don't know. We'll see what happens, but yeah, I still think Ducks is going to be the next one, unfortunately.
Rebecca, before you and I answer with our predictions, can we do like a little side bar kind of thing with Jolene?
Sure.
Especially because
Absolutely.
she's predicted ducks going out tomorrow. And Jolene has which I'm sure a lot of our listeners know anyways, Jolene has a YouTube channel, Bookworm Adventure Girl. And over the weekend, she posted a video in which she, with her predictions and how they were going to fall during the week for Canada Reads. And in that video, you discussed your reading experience for ducks.
Right.
I would love if you would just share it here because I thought it was really interesting.
Sure. Well, so one of the things is that I buy a lot of books, and I've been trying to not buy so many books. So I have an amount that I will put out every month, and then the rest I use the library or try to find other ways to read my books. And so with Canada Reads, normally I would just buy the 5 books, and thankfully I had 2 of them already. And the graphic novel for ducks, it was $30 even with the discount, and that's kind of like what I've said I'm going to pay for each month. So I thought, well, how am I going to do that? Plus I still had to get Hotline, because Hotline I couldn't get from the library either at the time. So I couldn't get Ducks, the physical copy, from the library. There was a very long hold on it. I tried to do an e-copy, but the e-copy, you can't make the font larger because it's illustrated. And so in order for me to read it, I got the e-copy, and then I would screenshot each page, and then I would just make it bigger and read it that way. And I am aware that, had I just gone out and bought the book, it probably wouldn't have been a much better experience just reading. It wouldn't have taken as long. But that also to me spoke to the availability and accessibility to the book as well. So, I mean, a graphic novel is a certain type of experience, and it's not, it wasn't that great on my phone to read it that way. However, I tried to still be as kind to it as possible and still just try and take like the information that I was getting. Because I have seen a physical copy of it. I was in the store after I read it. I did go into chapters, and I picked up the book and I flipped through it because I thought, you know what, maybe if I do see it, I will convince myself to spend the $30 on it. But even doing that, there was nothing in me that said, you need this book, it needs to sit on your shelf, and you should pay this money for it. So I didn't feel like I had missed much from the experience in the illustrations, because I could tell that some of the illustrations, and I think I say this in my video, that there were some very detailed illustrations. You can tell that she has talent and all of that. So it was there, but it just my reading experience of it was kind of the opposite spectrum of, say, my reading experience of Greenwood, which I've also talked about many, many times, and just like the book itself is a tree and and that whole idea, it was just a completely different, I was immersed in that, where, with Ducks, it was a struggle.
Can I just jump in and say, when Michael Christie said that he had taken out a second mortgage because he placed this large bet, I just laughed so hard, probably harder than I should have, but I thought that was just so funny. And I think we needed a good laugh at that point. So I thought it was well placed. Yeah. So Tara, what do you think prediction for tomorrow?
Okay. Thank you for sharing that, Jolene.
Yeah, no problem.
I think originally, Rebecca, when you and I were started discussing this like a month ago, I predicted station 11 going like first or second. I am switching that up. I actually agree with Jolene. I think Ducks might go tomorrow. After like today's debates, I have a feeling it might be Ducks.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, we're going to have a 3-way non-tie here because actually, no, wait a minute. You guys are tying. I'm not. Okay. So I think it's going to be Hotline. And the reason I think it will be Hotline is because if Gurdeep doesn't come with more like specific things about his book, and he just sort of kind of keeps repeating that same positivity message or the immigrant experience kind of thing, he's got to dig deeper. And I think that if he doesn't, I could see Michael not, because I think he was so enamored of Ducks, and I think he feels that way about Greenwood, and I sort of feel like he may look at Hotline and think there's just not enough there, because he never did really ever comment on Hotline. And I feel like it would backfire if the two other women tried to be strategic and vote each other off. You know what I mean? That could come back and bite him in the butt. So I'm going with Hotline. So yeah.
Interesting.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
So my question for you, Jolene, is if you want to let us know, how are you recording about Canada Reads this week? Like, what's your schedule like? Are you going to, I assume you're going to be putting out videos. What days can we expect to see those?
So I won't be putting out anything now until it's all over.
Okay.
And I will do a reaction other than this, obviously, and I'll be following your podcast every evening. But I kind of follow everything throughout the week, and then I will do a reaction video at the end and maybe share, haven't really decided yet, but my top 5 or 10 Canada Reads or something like that. And yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Okay, great. Well, yeah, thank you for being with us today. We're really excited that we could get you on the first day, and we will put obviously Jolene's link to her YouTube channel on the show notes. So please do follow her if you aren't already, which I'm sure you probably already are. But please do listen to her, because she has a wide variety of topics she discusses, and she never disappoints, because there's always something that I love to read the comments that you get, Jolene, because people are always, it's just a really thoughtful experience that you have when we listen to your show and people are making all these great comments. So I really, really enjoy your YouTube channel.
Thanks, Rebecca. That's very kind.
Absolutely. Okay, everybody. So we will see you again tomorrow night, probably some point after 7 p.m. Eastern time. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you for joining us on our bookish journey. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing, rating, and reviewing Canada Reads American Style wherever you listen. You can connect with the podcast and Rebecca on Instagram at Canada Reads American Style, and with Tara at On a Branch Reads. Until next time, keep reading.